Metro Awakening is just around the corner as we saw our first story trailer looking at what we will essentially be doing within the game and whose tale we are telling. Much to my surprise and excitement, the tale is of one of the most interesting characters within the Metro games and the novel, the man only known as Khan. We will be doing a dive into the story so far of this character in a future video, but for now I wanted to make a short video looking at the full trailer and talking about what is going on within it and what the little hints could possibly mean. So if you have played the games, you might spot little details, same as if you have read the 2033 book. But if you are new to this universe, maybe this trailer breakdown will help you understand what to expect and also what might be going on within the game. I will also be including some of the known lore from the games and book that links to what we are seeing, so if you don't want any spoilers of the previous things at all, it's probably best not to watch this brief breakdown of the trailer. So without further ado, let's get on with the breakdown of the Metro Awakening trailer to see what Easter eggs and lore bits we can find within it. We start our trailer out with this nice warming fireside shot of our protagonist looking down in his gas mask, saying the quote,
"My story is a tale of rules rewritten by nuclear fire."
We then get a nice glimpse of Khan, but as a much younger man. His hair all black with no real greys to be seen, and his beard and moustache much trimmer compared to what it is within the later games. To be honest, he's quite unrecognizable as Khan. We can also see that his bandana is missing from his head as well, which is important for something later within the trailer. The quote that Khan says here I think is a clear indication as to what the story will be focusing on, and will obviously fit the style of every mission we've ever played with Khan. A tale of rules rewritten by nuclear fire to me indicates that he is talking about the more paranormal events that have started after the bombs fell within 2033. Throughout all of the games and the 2033 book, Khan always quotes about how humanity had destroyed the world so much that heaven and hell are no longer a thing, and because of the war, the dead are forever stuck within the Metro, reliving their last memories over and over again for the rest of eternity. This line, rules rewritten, seems to be talking about how the bridge between life and death might not exist anymore, and something that will change this man's view of the world from now on. During some of the title cards of the studios involved, we get a very important line underneath simply saying, "Sedar, wake up." This line is vitally important because this is the real name of the man that would later become known as Khan, something we never learn about in the games or the books. In the books, which I explore in my Khan video, he calls himself the reincarnation of Genghis Khan, and that's it. But quite clearly here, he had a normal life, and during this story we will be exploring, something clearly happens to him to change him from a regular man known as Sedar to now Khan. We also get some lovely information from these two NPCs who may play a role in the game, but it's not really clear. But they give us a short but sweet line of "Doctor" as they greet him going down the hall. Once again, this gives us some context as to who this man is at this point in time in the game. Sedar is a man of medicine, which is quite interesting as it would stereotypically be a role of logic and fact-based, something that Khan isn't known for being really. He's far more mystical and philosophical with his views and beliefs in the world. Once again showing us that in this story, a dramatic shift happens in his view of the world, turning him from a scientific man to one focused on the paranormal and spiritual world. We then go on to get some lovely shots of the Metro that he is currently inhabiting in, which, thanks to the description of the game by the developers, we learn a bit more about the world we are entering. This is the year 2028, meaning we are 5 years before the events of Artyom and the Dark Ones, and 15 years after the events of the Great War of 2013. For context, around this time period, the VDNKH Commonwealth would be set up, essentially a group of stations teaming together to help their trade links and keep themselves protected. This would be where Artyom would be living at this point in time. The plague had also taken its first ever victim, simply named Patient Zero. Moskvin, the leader of the Red Line in 2034, would be killing his own brother and current leader of the Red Line during this time, and finally over in the station of this one, I can't pronounce it to save my life, random disappearances would be taking place with no one really knowing where people were going or why no bodies were showing up anywhere. Essentially, the Metro had started to have major problems with politics, but also with deadly diseases and mysterious happenings, something that Sedar here would be experiencing soon as well. We also get the information that this station that Sedar is living within is called, and look, I've tried to pronounce it many times in many takes, but I can't. So the station name is this on the screen right now. I'm sorry, my Russian is absolutely awful. Unfortunately, this is a brand new station to the games and the books. I can't seem to find much information about about it at all, but looking at it, it looks similar in style to many of the other livable stations, like Artyom's one in the VDNKH. Here Sedar lives with his wife Yana, who seems to have gone missing from the station, with Sedar trying to work out where she has gone. We get a brief shot of him going up to a man known as Max, asking if he has seen where she is, for Max to only claim something happened, whilst brandishing a rolled up cloth to Sedar. This rolled up piece of cloth is significant, as it is indeed the bandana Khan wears in the years he helps Artyom. What this means is that the bandana he wears must belong to Yana. That, or Sedar bought it for her as a gift and left it behind for him as a message. Either way, it's of massive significance to Sedar and Khan as well, as he wears it much later in life, even after his name and lifestyle change that he undergoes at some point. And clearly whatever happens to Yana can't be good, or she'd probably have made an appearance within the games or books at some point. We get some information from Sedar himself stating that Yana is in no fit state to walk out in the metro alone, which would imply that clearly Yana isn't all there mentally, or even physically. Considering Sedar is a doctor, stating that she can't be alone would mean that she's either suicidal or mentally not fully with it. We then get this nicely lit shot of her with candles everywhere and a bright light that she is walking towards, but suddenly a hard cut to that same looking tunnel looking in a much worse state. It's definitely the same tunnel, as the bones on the floor on the left hand side are in the exact same position, and the skull with the candles on the right side are in the same position as well, which would say to me that maybe Yana is not seeing the world in the right way. She is seeing it in a pristine way where everything is nicely lit and clear, but in reality, maybe in Sedar's eyes, the metro isn't like that at all. It is in fact harsh, broken and filled with death and decay. Either way, it's made evident that this is where she had gone, and Sedar must follow her tracks and try and find her quickly before anything happens to her. Maybe Yana is experiencing the same visions Khan sees later in life, or she is on the verge of death, seeing what it's like to live on the other side. It does say in the game's description that she has a traumatic past, so that probably has something to do with it as well. But anyway, after loading his Kalash rifle to show off the VR style, I'd imagine, we get a slow shot of Sedar holding a pistol and seeing a wall with a ton of religious iconography on it. What this means, I'm not fully sure. It could be like one of Khan's shrines in the later games where he pays his respects to the dead. Part of me thinks it could be Yana's retreat or safe room just for her, as the light gives off a similar glow to what there was at the end of the tunnel. But either way, it's clearly of someone obsessed with the idea of religion or religious idols. Or it could be related to some cult who have an obsession with religion. To match with that cult idea, we also get some shots of Sedar looking at bodies being placed in specific positions, with Sedar stating that they have been placed almost like they are ready for a ritual. We get some glimpses of a logo of a flame on one of the bodies, with a lot of chalk drawings on the floor and the bodies, which again would imply that there was some cult involvement, as well as a long trail of blood leading to a dead body. We then get some nice jump scary moments to show us that this indeed will be a horror and in VR, and I'm personally not ready for it at all. Cutting forward, we hear Sedar stating that he keeps on hearing voices on the radio. Probably not the most weird thing in the world. Radio interference is certainly a thing, and I'd imagine more so down in the metros. However, considering when we first meet Khan within the book and the games, the first thing he tells Artyom is about the voices of the dead and how they are reaching out at all times trying to absorb victims, it would not surprise me if this was Sedar's first experience with the paranormal, and this is where it begins. We then get a young sounding voice of a child saying, "You said there were people there," sounding like it was coming from the radio itself.
You said there were people there.
This is said alongside shots of Sedar dealing with what looked like heavily armed bandits and a weird mutant looking body in a clearly heavily radiated area in which he has to put a gas mask and filter on to get away from, before also showing a massive hint at what exactly Sedar is doing at this point in time. The child on the radio also seems to have not heard anything going on. Maybe this was after a gun battle or avoiding enemies of some sort. As Sedar says, "Did you not hear any of that?"
Did you not hear any of that?
making me immediately wonder if the boy on the radio is actually on the radio at all, or if he is one of the voices of the dead that Khan talks about much later in his life. That, or Sedar is hearing voices of the dead and the boy just cannot hear what he is hearing. Going back to this shot here, if we look down closely at the clipboard, which is our objective board and also inventory, we can also see the most recent thoughts Sedar has had and maybe the objective he is on, where it says, "The kids have gone to meet the worm." These words are backed up by a man who is clearly out of his mind, covered in drawings and rocking back and forth saying, "The worm, the worm, the worm." This would immediately stand out as evidence for what the bodies were laid out for and why they had drawings all over them. This would imply that the cult that Sedar seems to have walked into is the cult of the Great Worm. That is a big story within the 2033 book. That, or a cult heavily inspired by this faction anyway. If you don't know, I do have a video on the cultists which I'll link down below, but essentially they were a cannibal faction who would capture people from neighbouring stations to essentially eat. They would also capture children and raise them into their own cult. On top of that, they are extremely technophobic and live pretty much within the darkness, lit only by candlelight and lit fires. Quite clearly, Sedar is not only looking for Yana, but also a child or two who seem to have been taken by the worm cult. Why they are doing what they are doing, it is unknown, but it is awesome to have them within the game, because their story in the book is really terrifying, and they were only briefly mentioned within the 2033 game, but it was so incredibly subtle. Moving forward, we see Sedar's first dealings with visions as he cries out that he is hearing things and seeing things, as a train carriage lights flicker, a ghostly figure sits at a desk, and a shadowy ghost figure of a boy fading down a hall. One of the bits I love the most here is when just before Sedar states the line, "hearing things," he pans to the broken pipes within this dark tunnel, something that is a big Easter egg, as when Artyom first meets Khan in the game, Khan tells Artyom to listen to the pipes, and here he can hear the voices of the dead. In the book 2033 as well, Artyom would find that the voices that were invading his head were also coming from the pipes, so there seems to be a theme going on here, that maybe this is where Sedar learns of the voices within the pipes. After this shot, we get a very quick glimpse of a human running off after making a loud crash. A body, or rather skeleton, is also hanging up on the side, which would imply he was in the cult's territory. But the biggest thing I can get from this image is the human running is holding what looks like a stick and seems to be wearing tribal clothing, which, when you look at the description of the members of the cult of the worm within the books, as well as the concept art of them, they look extremely similar, which solidifies to me at least that the cult is a major presence within this game and are being made to look exactly like they are described in the book. What that red light is, however, I do not know, as I do not know many natural fires or lights that give off that red glow, and as they are technophobic, it certainly cannot be anything electrical. We then get a brief glimpse of the outside, showing us that we will definitely be going out there on our journey. Why we are out there, however, I have no idea, but thankfully there is no demon in the sky, so that's all good with me. Definitely don't want one of them flying in my face. But seeing some more random rooms filled with long hallways and furniture everywhere, we hear Sedar saying he thinks he is losing his mind, whilst other voices in the background start shouting Khan, which is intriguing as that is not who he is known as at this point in time. Maybe these voices are of a vision into the future, or maybe this is how he becomes known as Khan, or how he gets reincarnated into Genghis Khan, which is what he claims has happened to him in the books, and that is why he's known as Khan. We get a glimpse of a ritual going on as well, although what this means is completely unknown at this point in time. Maybe it's just showing that they are a cannibal tribe, or they are very brutal in nature, but it certainly looks like this game is going to be a wild trip during some of these sections, especially when it comes to the lighting and furniture flying all over the place. As we get to the end of the trailer, we get to see some nice gameplay elements showing off the physics of the game and how the gunplay looks and sounds, before being hit with Sedar stating,
Sometimes we need to become the thing we fear to prevent something worse.
What this quote means, unfortunately, I cannot tell. Maybe it's in relation to his transformation into the man known as Khan, or it's him accepting that the spiritual plane of existence is a real thing and he needs to work with it to help save Yana. Either way, it's quite clear that by the end of this journey, Sedar will be experiencing many horrors, be that cultists, mutants and ghostly figures, and it'll shape him into a new man. With that, the trailer ends in a strong manner, and I think it dives into some interesting lore elements such as the voices in the pipes, how the dead communicate, and most importantly, the cult of the Great Worm, which is such an exciting idea to face. Cannibals are a terrifying idea for any faction, but the Great Worm are so interesting within the book that it would be great to see them portrayed within the game. But those were all the little lore bits I could find and break down within the trailer. Did you notice anything in the trailer yourselves, and are you excited for this game? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. This was a bit of a different one, but as I love the world of Metro, I thought it would be nice to use the lore I've gathered over the many games and books to see if I can spot anything from the games and books, and ultimately turn it into a nice quick breakdown for those who are returning or are new to this series. I want to say a big thanks to my patrons for supporting the channel and being there for me, including my small fishes, my big fishes Greg and Oxfox, my YouTube channel Wise One, Sith Lord 906, Video Gamer 75 and RIP City, my sharks Alfred Correa, Jack T and Jason X117, and my megalodons Sinus, Nia Park and Hazy Thoughts. But that is all for now. Thank you so much for watching again, and I shall see you all in the next one. Cheers.